The night I signed the papers, I remember my hand shaking, not because I didn't understand what I was doing, but because a small voice inside me was screaming that this was a mistake. Outside, the city hummed like nothing important was happening, like lives weren't being changed forever behind closed doors. The room smelled of old files and cold air. He sat across from me, calm, composed, almost detached. Then he said the words that would follow me into every corner of my life. "There is just one condition. Don't fall in love." I laughed nervously, pretending it was a joke. It wasn't. That was the moment my marriage began. Not with vows, not with love, but with a warning. I know how it sounds. Who gets married under such a condition? But before you judge me, let me take you back to where it all began. Before the silence, before the rules, before I learned how painful pretending can be. At the time, my life was falling apart quietly. Not the dramatic kind of falling apart you see in movies. No shouting, no public breakdowns, just a slow, heavy collapse. My mother was ill, medical bills were piling up, and the small business I had poured my heart into had failed. I was exhausted from being strong. Every day felt like a battle I was losing politely. I needed stability. I needed help. And that was when he came back into my life. We had known each other years before. Not closely, but enough to recognize familiarity. He was successful, emotionally distant, and very clear about his priorities. Love wasn't one of them. When he proposed the idea of marriage, it wasn't romantic. It was transactional. He needed companionship without emotional attachment. I needed security. It sounded simple, logical, safe. "You'll have your freedom," he said. "I won't control you. I won't demand affection. We live together, respect each other, and build a peaceful life. Just don't fall in love." I told myself love was overrated anyway. I told myself I was too tired for fairy tales. I convinced myself that companionship without expectations was better than heartbreak. So I agreed. I agreed to a marriage built on boundaries instead of feelings. The wedding was quiet. No crowd, no tears of joy. People congratulated us, and I smiled until my cheeks hurt. Inside, I felt like an actress who had forgotten her lines. That first night, when we stood in the same bedroom like strangers sharing a hotel room, the silence was loud. He wished me good night and turned off the light. That was it. No awkward kiss, no embrace, just darkness. The early months were manageable. We coexisted politely. Breakfasts were quiet. Evenings were predictable. He was respectful, consistent, and distant. I told myself this was what peace looked like. No fights, no jealousy, no emotional chaos, just calm. But here's the thing no one tells you. The human heart doesn't understand contracts. Love doesn't ask permission. It crept in slowly, like a thief who doesn't break the door but slips in through a window you forgot to close. It was the way he made tea for me when I was sick without saying a word. The way he listened when I talked about my fears, even if he never shared his own. The way he sat beside me in silence when I cried over my mother's worsening condition. He never touched me, but his presence felt steady, safe. I started noticing things I shouldn't have. The way his face softened when he thought no one was watching. The way he smiled at children in public, even though he claimed not to like them. I memorized his routines, his moods, his silences. And one terrifying morning, I realized the truth. I was in love. The realization hit me like cold water. I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection, whispering, No. This wasn't part of the deal. I felt guilty, like I had betrayed a promise. I tried to fight it. I pulled away emotionally. I reminded myself of the condition. I told myself love would only ruin everything. But the more I resisted, the deeper it grew. Living with someone you love, who has told you clearly they will never love you back, is a special kind of pain. You celebrate their wins quietly. You swallow your jealousy. You pretend their absence doesn't hurt. You laugh when you want to cry. You love in silence. He never noticed. Or maybe he did and chose not to acknowledge it. One evening, after a long day, I made dinner and waited for him. He came home late. When he finally sat down, he ate silently, scrolling through his phone. Something inside me snapped. Not anger, but sadness. I asked him softly, "Have you ever thought about us differently?" He looked up, surprised, then serious. "We agreed," he said calmly. "No love. That was the foundation." I nodded, forcing a smile. "I know." That night, I cried myself to sleep, careful not to make a sound. Time passed. My mother passed away. He attended the funeral, stood beside me, held my hand briefly when no one was looking. That small gesture shattered me, because in that moment, I didn't want security. I wanted love. His love. I began to realize the truth I had been avoiding. A loveless marriage doesn't protect you from heartbreak, it guarantees it. The breaking point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, I found a letter on the table. He was being transferred abroad for work. Long term. He had planned everything already. I wasn't part of the decision. When I asked him about it, he said, "You'll be fine here. This changes nothing." That's when I finally spoke the words I had buried for years. "It changes everything for me," I said, my voice trembling, "because I love you." The room went quiet. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He just looked tired. "I told you not to," he said softly. That hurt more than anger ever could. He didn't say he loved me. He didn't say he cared. He said he was sorry, and that was worse. That night, I understood something important. Love given where it is not welcomed becomes self-betrayal. When he left, the house felt empty in a new way. Not lonely, but free. For the first time, I allowed myself to grieve not just the marriage, but the version of myself that thought love was optional. I left months later, not because I hated him, but because I finally loved myself enough to choose truth over comfort. Today, when I look back, I don't regret the marriage. It taught me lessons no romance ever could. It taught me that stability without emotional connection is survival, not living. It taught me that love cannot be negotiated away. And most importantly, it taught me this: never agree to shrink your heart just to fit into someone else's boundaries. Never accept a relationship where your deepest human need is treated as a flaw. And never confuse peace with happiness. To anyone listening to this story right now, if you are in a relationship where you are loved conditionally, silently, or not at all, please hear me. Love is not something you should be punished for feeling. If you enjoyed this story and it spoke to you, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Someone out there needs to hear this today, because love should never come with a warning.